First, I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in the Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people. And next up would be the approval of the agenda.
So move, Peter.
It's moved by Peter,
Second it.
second by Larry. All those in favor? Contrary-minded, motion carried. Right, so, business items requiring action. We're gonna do the general operating budget here, so we've had some chance to review it. And, if anybody has any questions on each one of these these areas of revenue, just let us know. Otherwise, we'll breeze through this. All right, we got commercial and residential. That's what we're going to be setting tonight. So our resource, and we get based on taxable assessments. Why is there, I guess my question for that one is, why is it zeros right now?
There's a lot of categories, residential, commercial, based on resource, based on taxable. The area rates are not in here. Also, your provincial grant and lieu's are not in here, and your federal grant and lieu's are not in here, because they're all based on the tax rate. And once the tax rate's set, then that will all be populated.
Thank you. Okay. So is there any questions on anything on the revenue side here?
You want me to run through,
You,
Chairman?
if you would like to do that, that'd be great.
Okay. On the revenue side, your categories under taxes, under your main, other than your taxes, the based on tax rate, under your resource section, the category under resource is $116,517. Your farm acreage grant from the province of Nova Scotia is $184,050. Then, of course, there's area rates will be populated once we're finished calculating. Your business property, you have tax from wind energy from the province of Nova Scotia, $967. Your based on revenue is $71,701, and that's your Bell Canada, based on revenues. Special tax agreement is Heritage Gas, based on revenue, and Town in Glasgow for the business park. Your tourism marketing levy, $25,000. Your wind energy taxes for your wind turbines, all the turbines, is $725,960, for a total in that category of $951,000.
Yes, go ahead.
Back to, on the top of that column, I think it was the special tax agreement. You said that, that was somewhat from the business part,
Yes,
and what else?
a Heritage Gas.
So the two numbers are mixed together there, that 127,382 is Heritage Gas
And from the business park.
so can we tell what it is? Do we have a figure for what it is from the business part itself?
Is that 100% revenue? Is that, and it flows through to the business park? Is that how that works, to pay down the debt?
No, the business park is our share of, the tax rates are, there's a certain tax rate set for the business park, and we have to share that revenue.
Yeah.
Okay, just one second Heritage Gas, or East, it's now called Eastward Energy, is 49,692, and the business park is 77,690.
77,690?
Yes,
And as the chair said, that's all our money, the 776.90, the town got theirs, they got the same, or is that to be shared, that amount?
that's our share of it,
That is our share,
yeah.
and it's 50/50, isn't it? So they
Yes.
would get the equal, is there a reason why that's combined with what seems not to have a lot of relationship, Heritage Gas, or?
Because they're special tax agreements.
Okay, that's why, it's just hard to separate out how much we're getting from the business park, but I got it now, so I thank you for that. Thank you, Mr.
That's
Chair.
where the province categorizes them special tax agreements.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? Go ahead. Councilor Turner?
Thank you. In terms of the tourism marking levy, how come we had such a discrepancy last year in our budget for $330,000 and this year it's 25?
Because at the time that the tourism levy was put in place, that's the 330,000 was the figure that they gave us, that's the amount that they told us we would be dealing with.
Okay, all right. Then we're a little
And
off.
that's what the actual was,
And the actual was
19,000.
19,000. Holy moly.
Okay.
Moving on,
Go ahead.
anybody else? Okay, moving on.
Councilor McDonald, go ahead.
The wind energy tax, is that just all, sorry. Is that for all the wind turbines in the
That's
county?
all the wind turbines
Okay.
that Victor County has.
Okay, that's just not ours?
No, that's all the
Okay.
wind
Okay.
turbines that are in Victor County that we collect wind turbine tax on.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, the last one then in the revenue category, there is, find my place now, I lost my place.
Deed transfer
Food
tax.
transfer tax. And that's an in and out, the revenue is 1 million, and we'll find an expenditure of 1 million also.
Okay.
So total for the tax category, theirs is 2,251,577. Grants in lieu of taxes, you'll see some zeros there because they'll all be populated once the tax rate is set. That's provincial and federal governments and their agencies.
Go ahead.
So under provincial government real property, it doesn't show zeros, but it shows a 58% drop. Will that be repopulated, some of that then, the same as the one
Some
through
of that
zero?
will be populated, yes.
That one isn't zero, but.
There's some part of that is not because it's your crown acreage, but some of it will be populated on top of that. It'll increase.
It will, because there's a big gap, well, 58% gap, some of
Yeah.
that'll be filled up, or
Yes.
most of it, okay, thank you.
Okay.
Sale of services, that was budgeted for services we sold to the town of Pictou, and so we just budgeted, there's nothing budgeted there for this coming year. Recreation services,
Oh, go ahead.
This is on the next one.
Okay.
recreation services, 25,000. And that includes recoveries for grants, it includes donations, it
Okay.
includes summer program monies that we would get, 15,000 from summer program, 9,000 for Bikes for Kids, and some miscellaneous revenue.
Okay. Do you have a question on the wind energy tax?
I do. That's from the windmills that we own, is that right?
Which one?
The
one
Nova
we
Scotia
own.
Power sale of wind energy, so we're selling power to Nova Scotia Power?
15,000 is from our own.
Yes,
Windmills.
I think we have to have a discussion on the windmill somewhere along the line, because there's been a considerable decrease in the revenue we're getting from those wind turbines, and it looks as though somewhere that there's a lot of expenses occurred there as well. So whether or not we stay in the wind business or not, is something we should have a discussion on as we move forward. Thanks.
Okay, go ahead.
I think Councilor Turner is a good point, but I think we did have this discussion last year or sometime not too long ago about the wind turbine business going down in terms of, it's one thing if you don't make any money out of it, another thing if our expenses, I didn't take a close look at what the expenses are, but, so we're predicting, well, this year we only were 17,000 something total sales, I guess, that's not the difference, that's the total sales. So we're predicting 15, but we've gone from 235, 198, some big figures, to almost nothing. Is that still related to not being able to get somebody to fix them? I know that was the last time we had a discussion, well, they're broken, we can't get them fixed. Is that still the problem, or why are we so low? You know, the wind must be blowing about the same there as it is here.
So we do have somebody to repair them. So 3 of the 6 are operating and have been operating since April. Unfortunately, the 3 inefficient machines. So we have 3 Seaforth and 3 Endurance. The Endurance machines are not operational yet. The reality is they were a 20-year asset or the 20 power purchase agreement. The company that's repairing them says you, in all likelihood, will not get your 20 years out of them. They're just too hard to find parts for, things like that. So
This is the endurance ones?
all of them.
All of them?
So they estimate you probably will have another 5 to 7 years out of them. So they are working to get the 3 Endurance machines up and running now. So the revenue that's here is just based on last year's kind of thing.
So-
We should outperform that, but
I guess my question is, if the expenses are higher than the revenues, then can we just decommission them and get rid of them? If we're spending more money on fixing them than we're getting from them, and they can't be fixed, let's just decommission them.
yeah, I think it'll balance out.
Okay.
We do have an expense this year to get them re-operationalized, but
Okay.
it should, over the next number of years, be
So you have.
somewhat profitable.
We have a 20-year power purchase agreement, correct?
Correct.
What year are we in now? Or are they 2 separate agreements?
8 or 9.
And you're getting 49 cents a kilowatt hour for those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why, like, when they were working,
Yeah.
Honey.
they made a lot of
Yeah.
sense.
So getting them operational is,
So we should,
even for 5 years, is a good
Yeah,
thing,
oh, yeah.
The
right?
cost that we've incurred so far hasn't been all that great. Get the Seaforth ones, huh? So.
Yeah, it's only like
yeah,
14,000,
Hasn't really been all that great.
Yeah.
and that's their annual maintenance,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
it's, I guess my only comment is, the folks in my side of the river that see them every day out their back window, they ask me what's going on with them, so.
yeah, so the Endurance machines right now, it's a technical issue, more of a software issue, to get them operational. They're having to work through.
Have we got any predicted time, like next month, in a year's time, whatever? Did they give you anything waiting for these parts?
On the Endurance machines, it's truly a technical log into a computer, find the fault codes, like that's their challenge. So it could be, in the next 2 weeks, they could have it resolved.
So we're in year 8, or we have
Roughly,
8 years left? 8?
We have
we're-
12 years left.
We have 12 years left, okay.
On the power
I think-
purchase agreement.
I think it might be premature to
No, we should
decommission them,
make
but,
sure they
but
get
we
fixed.
gotta button that down, I guess.
Yeah, and I guess on just final comment, the company that we have is basically told us if they are not repairable, then they will tell us that, like they will give us the, right, the bad news. The Seaforth machines, it basically took them 3 days to get them operational.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thanks. And I guess maybe I was misinformed about the expenses, but I was going down through this afternoon, and I may have misinterpreted this, but it says wind farm expenses. Is that our expenses? And if it is, the actual for 2019-20 is 163,000. 2021 is 107,000. 21-22 is 129,000. 22-23 is 131,000. 64,000 for the next year, and then it went down to 5.9, and then we budgeted for 40 last year.
We have a new
But-
company.
But there was a whole series of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years that we were considerable amount of money being spent on them. So that was the reasoning for my question, because the revenue certainly doesn't warrant the amount of expenses we're putting into it. So, thank you.
Okay,
Maybe, is that the right category that I'm looking at?
But if you look at the
Sorry.
revenues, every revenue year is higher than expenses.
Yeah, but it's just that trending there, it just doesn't look. That's all. It's just a lot of money in expenses.
so the budgeted figure of $15,000 in revenue is based off of last year's numbers, right? Is that how you determined that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and we haven't had good data come through on what it's produced
Yeah.
yet, since they've been operational. There's an acknowledgement, I think, that they're operational, but I don't think they've done a proper meter reading yet.
No, I have had an email from Nova Scotia Power telling me that they have received, acknowledging that they're receiving readings from them, but they can't tell me what the amount is going to be yet for April and May.
Okay. Right, go ahead. Karen?
Okay.
Other revenue from
Other
owns?
revenue from own sources, licenses, permits, the total amount for that category is 95,800, which includes dogs, building permits, subdivisions, and fines. Return,
Go ahead.
Karen, this past year was 310,000. What was that? Why?
that was the big one for the wind farms, the new wind farms.
All for the new wind farms. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Return on investment, that's your interest on bank deposits and tax arrears, 845,000. Miscellaneous, 61,000 for a total category of 2,125. Transfers from governments and agencies, province of Nova Scotia, municipal affairs, your equalization grant, 270,000. Nova Scotia Power grant, 16,000. Nova Scotia Power HST offset grant, 43,000, for a total of 329,955.
Go ahead.
Now, if I can find where I'm at, equalization grant, that's the one that's gonna disappear, is it, in place of us paying the housing in the prison and whatnot? Is that the one that has a time on it, or is it, how much longer are we gonna receive that, another year or two?
Year two.
We're in year 2, is it?
You two of 5.
Okay, so we have a few more years before, but that is gonna
It's gonna
disappear on us.
disappear, yes.
And that sort of equalizes with the ones, the housing and prison and something else, I think, that we don't pay anymore. I just wanted to know where we were on that, so we got 3 more years, okay? Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Okay, federal government, 8,000. Province of Nova Scotia civic addressing grant, 7,000. Communities, cultures, recreation, 3,000. And there's, we get a grant for a rebate for a claim we make for fuel rebate, 4,000, for it's 23,000 for the province of Nova Scotia. Other transfers, transfer from other funds and reserves, 1,995,183. That's your debt payment from the internet fund. Transfer from other departments, 260,000. And that's from your, the 1,995,000 includes 46,000 from the water utility, and then the 260,000 is from the sewer, as a recovery from sewer costs. So the total revenue is $6,019,579. Okay, next is expenditures. First category is your general government expenditures. Legislative category, which includes your elected officials. So you have warden and council expenditures. And the total for that category is $494,912.
Go ahead.
Just on the council expenses, it's gone from 2019-20 from 63,000 to actual 121,438 the budget last year. That's doubling.
They were getting out of COVID then.
Was COVID the reason?
COVID was the reason, yes.
Yep.
Thank you. That's all I need to know.
Okay. General administrative, is your subcategory, and that includes your staffing for your CAO, your administration, your finance department, your human resources costs, your legal services, your financial management, your IT expense, your office expenses, and the cost for your municipal building. And your total for that category is $1,638,369.
Go ahead.
Go right ahead. No, go right ahead.
Just on the financial management, we were just down to 1,772 actual for 2024, 25, from 33, 23, 23. Why the decrease?
You mean the actual?
The actual.
Oh, that's not finished, that's the 24, 25 actual are only as of that point. We're not finished the year end yet. That will
Okay.
increase,
Okay.
because there's no accrual in there for the audit fees or anything yet.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Deputy Warden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karen, the municipal building, that's the expense to run our building here?
That's the expenses to run this building, yes.
Thank you.
There's no other, at one time we had other buildings that were in that category, but right now the only buildings we have is this one.
Okay. Go ahead.
Taxation includes your low income exemptions and your policy reductions for your community organizations and your tax sale expenses. So in that subcategory, you have $360,049. Your assessment services, that's PVSC, $513,198.
Okay, go ahead.
Excuse me.
Can I go back to, what is it now, policy reduction? I know what low income reduction is, what's policy reduction?
Policy reduction is your is your write-offs for your community organizations. And like all those, what we bring to council for your policy bylaw. We used to be a policy, but bylaw, but now it's a policy. You know, schedules that we bring for your
Yeah.
community organizations, like your halls,
Yeah.
community halls. and
We just
your-
amended it a little while ago.
Yeah,
Okay, so that's what policy reduction means.
yeah, it used to be a bylaw, but now it's a policy.
Okay, the ones we've already approved, that we're not gonna charge taxes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, banking expense, 15,000. Reserve for uncollectible taxes, the allowance for this year, 130,000. Other general government services or expenses. In that category, you have elections, which we didn't budget for anything. We don't assume that there will be any by-elections. Council grants, which has already been approved by council. Communications, newsletter. We have no summer student in the general government section. Intergovernment relations, which would be your Federation of Nova Scotia Municipalities, your insurance, and any, and then sundry accounts like, I don't know, miscellaneous things like, well, I can't even think of anything right now off the top of my head.
FCM and NSFM.
NSFM, FCM, things that, or if we buy promotional things or something like that, 9,500 for the total category of 636,990. For a total of general government services for 3,788,518.
Okay.
Okay, next category is protective services. Police protection costs, which is RCMP in our case, had an increase of 6.7% this year. 4,746,213. Court expenses, which is the invoice we get for doing DNA testing and things like that, 20,000. Bylaw enforcement wages and expenses, 101,782. The fire protection subcategory is $826,047, and that includes your fire insurance from your fire departments and your grants to them, your fire inspection department, your fire hydrant protection. So that totals $826,047. Of course, your area rates will be populated once they're finished calculating. Emergency Services Department, $187,837. There's no COA grant this year, so there's nothing in that category. Emergency Measures Organization, that grant, that cost is $35,188. The Building Inspection Department expenses, $243,301. Unsightly property and dog control costs, $14,000. For a total cost for protective services of $6,174,368.
Go ahead.
Yeah, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, under building inspections, and we're down 11.8%. Is that because Mr. McKenzie's no longer with us?
We're down one person in that department, yes,
Okay. So do we plan on staying on down one person?
yes,
So that should carry through.
yes,
Okay, thank you.
at this point in time, anyway.
Okay.
The next category is transportation services. And that includes your roads and streets, 298,000, sidewalks, 140,000, streetlights, 8,000, for a total of 446,628. Again, there's an area rate category and for streetlights that will be populated once they're finished calculating. The next category is environmental health services. And of course, the top one is zero area rates for sewer, they're kept populated when they're finished calculated. Service connection expense, 100,000. Pictou Island collection and recycling for solid waste, 28,000. Combined collection for solid waste and 995,000. Your tipping fees, 803,000. Pictou County Shared Services Accounting and Administration, 53,000. The Municipality of Pictou County Litter Committee Initiatives, 10,000. Public Works Department expenses, 783,858. There's no students in that department this year. And other environmental health, $1,000. for a total of $2,775,146.
Okay, go ahead.
Last time. So I'm getting questions from one particular individual, but in general too, that, so the word is around that EPR starts for recycling material on December 1st. So that'll be 1/3 of this year. Will be under EPR of this budget year. And, you know, word has been out that, well, we're saving $1 million. So there's people asking me, you know, are we gonna get a rebate then, or are we gonna see a lowering of our taxes? And I've sort of warned them that, well, there's other costs, you know, that this comes from shared services, and there's other costs that go up, but there is an expectation out there, I think, that there's gonna be a drop in taxes because we're gonna save this $1 million. So I was just wondering, Brian, if you can explain where that $1 million goes to, other than being chewed up some by other expenses at the landfill. But how much of that $1 million is ours, or would be ours? Would it be the same percentage as shared services and other things, or what is our saving from going to EPR?
Yeah, so your savings are a reflection of your percentage off usage, right? So it's tied to the collection contract tipping fees for the blue bags. So your percentage is your costs associated with that. The reality is the collection contract that we've entered into is a lot higher, and will eat up most of that savings, right? So shared services in their budget has prorated the amount of EPR to balance their budget for this year, so.
So the explanation is sort of, it's gonna get chewed up by other increased expenses. Unfortunately, that $1 million figure got out there, and people have that expectation now that, you know, we're gonna be saving $1 million. So what are you gonna do with it? So I don't know if that needs to be clarified or what, but it's causing some expectations that aren't real, I guess.
Yeah, I think what EPR does, it does cover your expenses, right? For your collection of the blue bag material and ultimately the processing. It will cover those expenses, but we were blessed for 5 years to have a below market probably collection
Price on the
contract,
collection, yeah.
right? And now the new contract is probably back to market price type thing, so.
But would that $1 million be, you know, wherever that came from, I don't know, but would that be our proposed savings or for all the units?
That was all of Pictou County.
That's all the units,
Yeah.
so, you know, about half of that might be ours, so
Correct.
automatically half of the money's
Right.
disappeared, but.
Yeah, the amount I think they showed in their budget was like 980,000 or something, I think is what.
For the shared services
Yeah.
budget, for the savings,
Yeah,
yeah.
but we only represent roughly 48% of the volume.
Okay, now I just wanted an answer, so the answer appears to be mostly that it's gonna be chewed up by higher prices, especially for picking it up.
Yeah.
That there's not gonna be $1 million sitting in a pot for us to decide what to do with it.
No,
Okay.
it's, in a way, it's an offset, right? It's a good thing that it's come
Yeah,
along
otherwise
because,
we'd be paying a lot more.
yeah.
Thank you.
So we'll get one before we move along, Karen. I get, just on tipping fees, what would consist of tipping fees? Is that our vouchers program?
No, the tipping fees are, the vouchers are in with the, let's see. Yeah, the vouchers are in with the, look here.
They're in the 803.
The what?
The vouchers are in your 803.
In the 803, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the tipping fee is the 803, yeah.
So that's all of your streams,
Yeah.
plus your vouchers.
Yeah.
Organics, recycling.
And if
And
it's,
garbage.
is there an easy way to get even a rough idea of how much of that 803's
voucher program,
the voucher program.
Okay, just-
266.
Okay,
206 for your vouchers and 55 for the $10 fee and a miscellaneous of 5.
266 for vouchers, 88 for Blue Bag, 187 for organics.
okay. Thank you.
Okay. There's no public health anymore. So our next category is environmental development, which includes your GIS department, wages and expense, 111. Development officer expenses, 109. Municipal planning, we put 5,000 in there in case there has to be something changed with the plan. Regional development, 81,000. Local development, 60,000. Community development grants, 20,000. Climate change programs, 44,500. Boundaries, 1,000. Wind farm expenses, 86,000. New Scotland Park expenses, 100,000. And accessibility committee programs, 10,000, for a total of 628,807.
Okay,
Mr. Chair?
go ahead.
Those are the wind farm expenses there then that we were talking about earlier, is it?
Yes,
So
86,000.
that's against the 14 or 15 in income, that was the figure, but I guess as we discussed before, that will hopefully, turn around. But the other one I was gonna ask about was community development grants. Is that our 1,500 each that we get, or what's, no?
That's your coordinators.
Oh, that's for the coordinators?
Yes.
Okay, I think I saw in here somewhere where I think it was 18,000, that's where it should be 1,500 times 12, yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, oh, go ahead, Debbie.
Stays on,
Oh, there it is, okay. Just on the climate change program, is that based on the presentation they did here that night, or is that money for something else?
Yeah, yeah, some of it is, so included in that is $10,000, which is the normal kind of climate change budget. Then there's $18,000 in there for a position that's we got funding through FCM, and it's partnering with the town of Pictou for a 2-year person to work on climate change things. And we've included a provisional, I think it was 16,000. We have a couple of other grants that we've applied for. We likely won't hear until September. So those are on, both of them deal with coastal erosion and things like that. So we won't hear from those until probably September. So we put in 16,000. One of them is a $16,000 commitment, but it's over, I think, 3 years, but we kind of put it all in as a 1 year kind of thing. So it's a start towards some of the things.
Okay. Next category is recreation services. Recreation department wages and expenses, 202,279. Student wages and expenses, 81,000. The recreation grants, 190,900. Program expenses, 49,000. Pick County Wellness Center, 318,696, for a total of $842,000.
just to make a comment again, which I've made before, but if I can find it on here, Pitcher County Wellness Center, the last one. You can see, significant increases, and they don't seem to be getting any better. It says 33.7% there. I don't know where that figure came from, because I didn't think we had upped it that much this year. But, that's what's showing there, so it must have came from them, but, you know, we were trying hard to hold it at that, 238 level or close to it, but the year before, I see it had been 368. Generally, what we're told is that, you know, the numbers staying, or they're trying to stay pretty much the same on what they call municipal contribution, but, that is hurting us a lot, and, there seems to be no ability to get it under control. In fact, we have, you know, a big capital expense there that we're gonna have to face one of these days too, that's coming, you know, gonna have to come from the units. So, you know, I don't know what to do about it, but it just seems to, it's mostly power. You know, if it wasn't for power, they'd be fine. It's not on wages in there, it's not on, you know, there is a fair amount of disagreement sometimes, I guess, with the why as to who's paying for what. But, that continues on, and, but I just look at that figure, and that's, you know, under that department, or under that section, you know, that's a pretty good, chunk of the total. It's almost a third. But, you know, I just wanted to bring attention to it, that it is continuing to rise despite all the efforts that have been made. But, I don't have an answer for it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, next section is cultural services. Regional library, 203,498. The branch library, there's two branch libraries now, 85,000. That's 45 for River John and 40 for Pictou. Tourism marketing levy, 25,000. Community services, 18,000, and that's your $1,500 grants. 331,498.
Another question, Mr. Chair. Go ahead. On the Pictou Library, we never really got a report on that I remember to say how those costs were gonna be shared. I know so much of the operating cost is supposed to be paid out of an endowment, and then the remainder of the operating costs were to be split between, the town of Pictou and us. But I don't think that ever came back here. We put it off for several months in a row. Do you know how it's split, Brian? Is it just 50-50 then, or?
Where we came up with the figure that's in here is a reflection off the first 6 months of operating. So we knew what those costs are. We've asked for the agreement finalization in budget. We haven't got that yet, but how we came up with our budget figure of 40,000 is based on the first 6 months plus little contingency, I guess is what we'll call it, to bring it up to the 40. The first 6 months would have brought it out closer to 30, yeah, so our halves.
This has to be finalized.
Yeah, so we just
But we
needed
had
a
to budget
figure.
for
Had
it.
to come up with a figure, but just wondering if the endowment part had been taken off first of that estimated cost and then split it with the town, or is this not paying any attention to the endowment?
It's all, these are the costs, I guess, net of any shared operating expenses. So the endowment covers shared things like with the cost and the library. So these are things that are pulled out that would not be a shared expense between the two.
Endowment
So,
wouldn't make any difference on that.
right, so things like janitorial, power, that's because I think they're separate meters. So things that can truly be identified. And then there's an overall shared expense that the endowment contributes to.
I think we have to get that agreement or whatever, like you said, we have to know what the basis is that we're sharing these costs on, because it was expected way back 6 months ago, I think, we
Yep.
never got it. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just looking at that library one, they're trying to figure it out. It's 95% increase in what you're budgeting from the previous year. What's the reason?
So the
for
town
that?
of Pictou is a new expense. That library
Oh, okay.
is new.
Okay, all right, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Go ahead.
Education costs, $6,766,233. That's a category of its own. Special items, municipal services grants, 300,000. Deed transfer tax, 1 million, or cost of 1,300,000. Financing and transfers, transfers to other funds, interfund debt, 1,949,183. Transfer to operating reserve, $319.43. And transfer to general capital fund, $694,000. Transfer to water capital fund, $50,000. For financing transfer, cost of $3 million. For a
So-
total expenditure, $26,065,443.
Okay. Go ahead, Counselor Turner.
Thanks. Can we just go through those one by one and kind of explain a little bit in detail what each one of those are? I mean, there's categories there, but if I can just get some meat on the bones there.
What,
The transfer, other fund, interfund debt is the debt from the internet.
So that's internet, the 1.9 million?
Yeah.
that's the operations.
It's the debt from the internet debenture.
Okay.
The transfer from general operating reserve is the amount that we had, it's an amount that we had left in excess when we finished calculating the tax rate. We had a surplus of $319,000 that we put in here to transfer to reserve. The $694,000 and the $50,000 are the capital from revenue capital items that were on the schedule that was given to you.
Yeah, okay.
And that would be something that council can look at, the separate schedule.
I was just curious, the first one was the one
Yeah.
that
So-
had the most questions.
Yeah.
If I can ask a couple questions on that first one. There's, in 2020-21, there's 738,995. And then, that's not internet though. That one there. There's a couple of years where there's zeros there, and then it starts at 624. That's internet as well, is it?
No, 738 wasn't debt. That should be posted in the line below.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we went through the general operating budget. Do we go run through the whole thing, or do we set our tax rates now? How do you
Yeah.
do that?
So the budget here brings you basically by holding your tax rates at your 81.5 and 182.5, your budget is balanced with everything that is here. So as Karen mentioned, like the 319,000 transfer to operating reserve is over and above what, it's 300,000 that we, holding the tax rates, did not use. One of the options that we have it shown as a transfer to reserve, one of the things we could do with that is apply that to the internet fund and the outstanding, I guess, short-term liabilities there. And if we did that, that 319 would basically, over the course of the project, would pay double itself, right? Because of the interest savings that you would get. You're basically gonna save, year one, you're gonna save probably between 12 to 15,000. So you put that over the course of the 30 years, compounding it. It'll basically pay for itself, or we just transfer to our general operating reserve. So that's an option with that. But the budget as it is here, holding the rates balance and do everything that's contained herein.
Go ahead.
I often get asked what our budget is for here, our budget number for a year. So would the budget number then be the 26,065? And below that it says tax levy, so we're collecting that 6 million and something from other sources that we mentioned earlier. So the actual amount that has to be raised from the taxpayers is 20,000 or 20,045,864. That's, so then you guys divide it out and you come up with the 180, the 81 cents and the $1.82, is it? So that's I guess another confusing point often comes in the education part of it, which is $6 million. So people will say, the general public, some know, some don't, but that we're just collecting the money for the school system and handing it on to them. So Wayne and I write the checks for, what, $500,000 plus every month. So is the 26 million includes that money for education?
It does, yeah.
So we don't spend that money, we just hand it on. So really, the amount of money we've got to spend is pretty well equal to what we're charging the taxpayers there. I know it's a different 6 million in different ways, but that's about the amount of money that we have to spend is around $20 million. The other, we're already committed to just hand it on, the 6 million something for the education.
Yes, yeah, in that sense.
So it's really $20 million that we're dealing with. I think sometimes it's confusing to the general public, you know, on the education part particularly. A lot of them don't even figure we pay any to education, that that's all provincial, which it isn't. Obviously, it's a big part of what we're collecting here, but just wanted to be clear on that because you do get asked the question, what's your annual budget, you see? So it's really slightly over 20 million. But yet, some people call it 26, but that's just a hand-on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think your budget is 26 million because you are levying that 6 million
On behalf of education.
on
then
behalf of,
Yeah,
right? So your budget is 26 million. It's all got to be covered,
but
right?
we only have 20 million to
But
spend.
that 6 million, exactly, that 6 million goes out the door.
Yeah, without any discretion from us, for sure.
Unless the RCMP and that stuff too, wouldn't it?
Yes, but you
We-
can
we-
determine the level of policing. You cannot determine
We
the level
can't
of
on the
education.
education, that's
Okay.
just,
They reverse engineer that number.
Yeah, Brian, could I just get you to go over that 319,000 you said that we have there in the general operating reserve, how we would double that? I missed how, what we would be putting it into to double our,
So in essence, what you would do is, if we transferred it to the short-term debt, we're going to save that interest on the 319,000. So when you factor that out over the course of the project, you save that money, yeah, in overall interest costs. Yeah.
Councillor Dewar. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I'd like to move that the municipality of Pictou general operating budget for this year be moved. I need a seconder. Get on to it.
You have to, yes, you have to say, set the rates.
Yeah, it's really two
And-
different motions.
It's really two motions, you set the budget and then.
Set the budget and then your tax rates. Yeah.
I move to set the budget then. And that's,
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess going back to the reserves to capital, to general operating reserves, would that not make sense to put that on that debt? At the end of the day, we're gonna be saving double the amount, and, I mean, last year we didn't put nothing in the operating reserve, so I can't see any difference why it would be needed this year, I guess, is my question. So I think I'm okay with the budget, but I think we should be looking at that. And I'll make a motion that we do use that 319,000 to, no, sorry, I can't. I can make amendment, can I, to the motion?
Let's keep it clean and do budget first and then deal with that as a specific item. That would be my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question was pretty well exactly the same. Is if we pass it in the budget, we can move that at a later date, what to do with it, I presume, as long as it's in the budget.
Any other questions or comments on? Question's been called. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Okay? So now we need to set the tax rates.
okay. I move that the tax rate remains the same at 81 cents on the 100,
81.
and the commercial stay the same at $1.82, is it?
81.5 and 182.5.
Okay.
It's just like getting gas. Is there a seconder for that motion? Seconded by Council Palmer.
Here. Thank you.
Council Bailey. Any questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Who said,
Oh, go ahead.
who made those motions?
Chester and Randy.
Thank you.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Okay. All right, next up is are we doing the hydrants first? And where's that at? That's not. Here it is. Sheet looks like this. Right? Okay. All right, so we got an increase, well, we have one less residential customer, do we? 647 compared to 648 from last year. And for our new counselors, can we just sort of have a quick explanation of what this charge is and where it comes from? Is there somebody who wants to tackle that?
You said quick. I'm not sure that's possible. So each of the water utilities, in essence, have a fire protection charge associated with them, and it's a calculation that it's basically pipes in the ground to service residential or potable water. You can basically do it through a 2-inch pipe, I think. But most of your pipes in your water utility are 6 or 8 inches. So the difference between that is between what is needed to supply drinking water and what is the size of your pipe is considered for fire protection. So they do a mathematical calculation, and it assigns the numbers. So we have Town of Stellarton, Town of Trenton, Westville, New Glasgow, and ourselves. We all come up with that charge. We then, it has to be recovered. So the way it is recovered here is we put a portion off it onto the users, off the utility, and then the general tax rate pays 8% off it as well. So the rates that are here are based on an allocation. One of the things, I guess we kind of just went over it in the general budget, we have increased the municipal subsidy this year. And the reason for that is basically there was, I guess, an accumulated deficit in that fund. So we've used the general rate to do away with that. Because otherwise it would go on to the users, and it would be a substantial increase in that. So this, we had a little bit of flexibility in the general budget, so we applied it to just wipe that out. And the rates are all basically held the same.
Okay, Councillor Boyles.
Yeah, with the, you said for the users that, you know, but in Hillside, they never use them. They just don't use them. They go up and get it from Trenton and then at the you know, at the hydrants there. So these people are paying this money, but the hydrants are not being used. Plus, some of them, if they're within 1,000 yards or whatever it is, even though they're not on the water or anything, they still have to pay too. It just don't seem right. I mean, I know Edmund was saying there that tell me there that they're going to be doing stuff with the hydrants, just cleaning them out and make sure they're more visible and more easy to get at and painting them up and everything. But that's something we've got to do. But you know, you wonder if the people in Hillside, they got a legitimate complaint, I think, when they said they're paying this big money, but they're never ever using them. And then you got the ones that, you know, out in Walkerville and around that area there that a lot of them are broke. They turn around and somebody called me and said, that thing broke, it doesn't even work. And then, you know, you have to call and find out what's going on. So I just say that for the money we charge them, I can understand people saying, so I will not be voting for this anyway, for any increase or anything else with it.
Okay. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under institutional, we have Northumberland, McLeod, Riverview, Valley View, and I presume those numbers that are under the rate column is the assessment. Is that right? Like 21 million for Northumberland? Is that the assessment? Then the amount billed is 102,000. Am I correct in that interpretation? Okay. What does there's a whole series of things out in the last column. What do they mean? NST, PW?
They're on this, on here. Yeah. This is this year's.
Yeah, but it's still here.
Okay. Well,
What are those columns? Oh, yeah. So, yeah, okay, sorry. The Northumberland's gone down to
93.
90, yeah. So, anyway, what do those things mean in the columns?
NS, Nova Scotia Transportation Public Works.
Care of Her Majesty Queen.
Oh, okay,
So that's who pays the bill.
okay. Okay, that's it.
That's who is assessment.
Oh, okay.
And we're getting that money from the school board or?
Schools pay.
Schools pay, okay?
Okay. And the bottom one is DNR, His Majesty King? Okay, all right.
Big jump out there.
Warden Parker, guess.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do want to get to the Department of Natural Resources or whatever there, but, so we kicked in an extra 50, we being the general taxpayer, I guess, so from 340 last year to 390 this year? Is that what we did in order to keep, you said it would have been substantially higher otherwise. So will that continue, the next year, or at what point do we decide, no, we have to put the general rate up some as to put it onto the general taxpayer, we have to put the user rate up compared to the general
This is
taxpayer?
reviewed every year.
Okay, so it was decided this year because we had a little extra in the pot that we could afford to, so we paid the extra of the general taxpayer. There's always a bit of controversy between the users and the general taxpayer, I know, but this year it seemed we were able to. I wanted to go back to the one about the jail there. I see it's accumulated now to 582,000. What do they pay for again? Is it the water, or what? This is hydrant.
Pay
They
for
don't pay
water.
for. They do pay for water, and what about sewer?
They do not pay for sewer.
Do not pay for sewer and do not pay for hydrant. And we talked about a way that perhaps we could look at not getting the past paid. I don't think we're ever gonna get that. We could kiss that goodbye. But the, going forward, is there not a methodology or something that perhaps we could collect, or are we moving forward on that? or
There
what's that?
is, but as we said, there was no way we're gonna get that in for this year.
No,
But on the sewer, there is the potential to recover. So it's water in, water out, will be the measure.
so it's then called something else,
It's consumption.
consumption. That's-
So,
That
but,
only works for the areas that have water.
yeah,
And
so,
so then you have to devise a system that, for the areas that don't have water.
Yeah,
That's
so-
that's equivalent to the areas that don't have water, so
yes,
there's a lot of study that has to go into that.
yeah.
That's fine for a town that has water in for everybody.
Exactly, yeah, because I paid under that system before, I know how it works, but, I just don't like them to see anybody, but particularly, government department, getting out of paying us, well, this one's almost is over $500,000 now, and that's not counting the sewer one. This is just for the hydrant, isn't it? That's 582. I think we have to move ahead with whatever we have to do, as complicated as it might be, if we can force them to pay, I think we should be doing that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is partly answered. I'm wondering what the MOPC subsidy, what's that money we put into the pot to keep the,
Yes,
root?
yeah, so that is reflected in your general budget, that 389
Yeah.
was,
That's to keep the rate down on the fire hydrant charges?
it does this year. Like, we traditionally put in 340 is
Yeah.
what we've been traditionally putting in.
Oh, you put the 389 in because there's a little extra revenue, is it?
Yeah.
That keeps the rate down. That's, yeah, no.
It
I'm just-
maintains your 24, 25 rates.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just one comment on this is that this is Utility and Review Board. The rates are set by them, correct?
Correct. They are set by the Utility Review Board.
And just to give you an example of, we're being charged by the town of Stellarton for this year it's $375,000. And that's for about, how many hydrants are out in Riverton, Chester? 6 hydrants. And the reason why those hydrants need to be there is we have 2 homes and a school. And so and we can't recover that from the people that live in that area, that are in that hydrant area. It's a challenge, right? So that's why you get that imbalance. So, okay. So, Joe, go ahead.
Just one question. So that subsidy is the 49,000 we added to the subsidy this year, it's from everybody in the county.
The 389 is from everybody in the county.
Okay, so doesn't matter if we have any benefit from the hydrants and that stuff, or the water or something. Like, for our district, it's, you know what I mean?
It's a general subsidy from the entire taxpayer.
Yeah, okay.
Okay,
If you're up in McCullough's getting the truck fixed, you can fill up in Plymouth or Riverton on your way back.
okay, so, after we've reviewed this, I'm looking for a motion to approve as presented. So moved by the warden, second by Councillor Turner. Any questions on this? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contraminded? One nay vote? Okay. All right, so we're on to sewer area rates. In your package. So we all had a look at this, and this is pretty well flat from the same as last year sort of thing, as far as charges go. I think it might have went up by, what, $7?
So there is a $7 increase. If you look at year to year, the overall expenditures are forecasted to be lower than last year, but the big change is in the user units, the number of units it's spread over, which is a reflection of the jail numbers not being in there.
Okay,
So that's what drives the $7.
okay. Go ahead.
I wanted to point out, under URPS systems, if you follow the line across in 2018-19, all of a sudden, in last year, we double it, go from 166 to 342. And that's punishment, really, for us not having the flow meters. It was decided, I didn't vote for it, but it was decided at shared services that we do it a different way, in sharing the cost of Eric and Trenton, and because they don't have a way to measure what our flows are, and they upped the rate a lot to make sure that we were paying enough. And when the flow meters go in, then, you know, if it shows that we're not putting as much into the system as it claimed, and Brian seemed to think that we were being overtaxed on that at the time. I didn't know much about the figures, but it was certainly a significant increase, you know. And until we get those flow meters in, it seems to take forever. I think we asked, or somebody asked every meeting in here how we're coming, and it moves from January to June to September and on. So I guess I'd like to ask a question through you, Mr.
Yes.
Chair, to Mr. McDowell, as to when we can expect to be able to say to them that we have those flow meters in.
Thank you for the question through you, Mr. Chair. We will get that tendered this summer and get this installed either later in the summer or in the fall. Yep.
Okay.
I guess my concern is that this has been going on for quite some time. You know, they claim 10 years. And they claim, you know, that it's been 10 years since we put those flow meters in. So while I wasn't around then, I'm not aware of how long that was or whether they didn't go in, but, you know, what is the holdup from getting them in? Is they not available, or we don't have time, or it just seems to keep stretching on and on?
Yeah, thank you for the question. We, I think people know that we had an issue last year with our contractor, and then this year it's just been about revising the tender, getting it out, speaking with our suppliers, meeting with the suppliers who actually provided the units that we had bought last year. So we have those 4 that are pretty near ready to go. So those are the ones that we should get in as soon as possible, because that can be done relatively quickly, all things considered. And then the other ones, there is still some debate on the others, on whether or not we need all 9. That's still a debate that I've had with Anthony Sheehan from Shared Services. So I think the 4 that we have in the backyard, we should aim to get those installed as soon as possible. And then the other ones, we should tender out later this year and try to get them in also this construction season, so we're all settled that way.
Okay, hopefully we do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councillor Dewar.
I'll move that we accept the new rate of $375.49.
It's moved and seconded by Deputy Warden Murray. 375.
Okay, it says 49.
Yeah, 375,
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments or questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contraminded? No. Deputy Warden. Okay. And that's just this operating is just background for that, is it? That's all that was. Okay. I'm not used to handling paper, so. Okay, so next up on the agenda is the water utility. So who's gonna walk us through this here?
So the water utility budget is fairly static year to year. If you look at the overall, the 25-26 budget, we're in basically at year end, we're projected to have a deficit. And part of that is driven by, I guess, a accounting change that actually occurred in your 24-25 year, which will be reflected in your year end there, which will in all likelihood put us into a deficit position in that year. And that accounting change will flow through forever and a day, and it's just how interest is recorded. So when your utility goes into a negative, there's only one way to recover from that negative, and that's on the users. So at some point here in the 25-26 year, we're probably going to have to do a full rate study and go to the utility review board for an increase in the rates type thing. So it's a bit of a process. Kind of a lengthy process too. It'll take 7 or 8 months probably start to finish. And there will be the adjustment to the rates.
And I guess the other thing that's sort of working in conjunction with that or beside that is we're gonna do a water extension through McClellan's Brook and out through Colburn, which will pick up some more users along the ways. That may have a positive impact, or
It will certainly, there's 156 potential hookups. The survey was fairly positive, especially in the areas that we're doing. The part of the downscoping took out areas where people didn't want it. We took them out. So each one of those users that we pick up is additional revenue to it. So that all has to be kind of factored in as well, but the reality is they're not going to be reflected in the 25-26 numbers.
okay.
I don't think you'll see them reflected till 27, 28.
Yeah, right, just based on construction and commissioning, so they're not in here. So
What
they'll
is it?
be projected into the rate study, but not in this budget.
So how many users do we have now, just to provide context?
670?
Okay.
And we're adding 156, so.
Okay. So at the end of the day, rates are gonna stay the same this year, but we'll be into a process. Is that correct?
Correct.
And I guess we just need a motion to approve as presented. That's the best way to put it? Moved by Deputy Warden. Second by Councillor Palmer. Any questions or comments on the,
Mr. Chairman.
yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, the water budget now, when there's a storm and there's, them pumper trucks are sent down to the pumping station in Hillside, does that go on this too? It's different, is it?
That's your
Okay.
sewer.
Well, that's sewer.
Sewer, yep. Yep.
Okay. Any further questions or comments on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried. All right, we're on to capital improvement planning projects. Everybody got the memo in their desk? Just like that? Okay, and there's a number on here. So do we want to sort of go through a high level of what they're planning with the building renovations here, or is that just a budget figure right now?
Yeah, so the ones that are listed in the memo are things that council has already included
Okay,
as approved projects
Okay.
in the capital plan, so they're really just subject to when they happen in financing.
okay,
So the 1 through 15, those are items that you've already identified as priorities.
okay.
The
Go ahead.
matrix that was
Gordon?
associated, those are new projects that have not been
Yep.
put on that list.
Go ahead.
Sure. So I had a couple calls today to do with the Riverton Water System extension. So I told them I would ask tonight. I knew it was on the list that's already been approved by council, but is there any idea of telling, what comes first or when that project, I just need to tell them when that project might start. Is that a year 2, 3, 4, 5? Do we have any idea what year these might be in?
It might start in year 1, but it's probably a 1-2 at best, based
Okay.
on,
Possibly a 1-2 then, but possibly later. There's no determination yet of
Yeah.
what comes first out of these lists of numbers.
yeah, it really is what we can afford.
And what there's money available. Does it have to, is it one of the ones that's dependent on money coming from government before it can be done or not?
No, I think we planned gas tax for that,
Okay.
right? So
It doesn't, it's not help, but, no, I just need to get back to an
Yeah,
answer.
so
So year 1, 2.
it could be year 1, year 2.
Yeah. But we
kinda-
can't say for sure at this point. We can't say, yeah, that's gonna start, in August or something.
No, council will have to determine that.
Yeah.
Once we have all the priorities identified, we can map out what we think is our best
Is it
best estimate.
Is it designed?
No, so that's why I say it's a 1-2. It may be designed in 1, but not built
Yeah.
until
I-
2.
I think we get ourselves in trouble sometimes
Right.
with that, right? Like, it takes time to build these projects out, so it's,
Design is not quick.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Dewar, do you have a question?
I actually had the same phone call from the man that owns the trailer court.
And then another one's on.
Yeah, and I told him that it's on the list, and we just have to take our turn, is what,
Yeah.
how I said it to him. But I guess somebody else was talking to him amongst themselves, I guess, and they were thinking it was gonna happen sooner. But this gentleman, he already did all the pipe work inside the river and trailer court, preparing for when it comes, so he's anxious as well. Thank you.
Okay. So are we gonna go through all this, or is that just for information purposes as we build it out? Or are we gonna decide those at a later date?
Well, yeah, so these are the new projects, or projects that haven't been added. We can kind of go through them at a kind of a high level, kind of thing, and then you, basically, council then votes on these projects, so you will vote whether or not it's something that should be added to the 1 through 15 list as a priority project, or something that can be deferred to a later date.
So I guess, Mike, if I can just ask this question, and I'll go to Councillor Bailey, okay? The first one on that list is the water project in Churchville. Would it be more prudent for us to get a response from the community before we go down the road with some of these projects to see if there's interest in that? Is that the first hurdle that they should cross?
Yeah, so, and maybe I'll just speak to that. So the Churchville water, when we look at these projects, so Churchville water, cost estimate of 2.8 million. Impact on user fees, well, there will be hydrant fees for that. Affordability is kind of red flagged. 2.8 million is a big number on your own. And certainly we don't necessarily have 2.8 million to write a check to do that. So that's kind of a red flag for that project. Is it a good project? Yes. But is it a project you do on your own? Probably the answer to that is no. Funding options, kind of a red flag. The federal infrastructure program that McClellan's Brook is funded out of has 10 years left on it. Right now, it is fully committed. So the new government will have to put new money into that because that fund is exhausted right now.
The federal government.
Federal government, right? Federal and provincial, because that one is what's actually a
15,
tri-party
yeah.
agreement, right? So we would be on the hook for 26% of the cost. So right now, there isn't a federal program out there. So then if you kind of go down the list, feasibility to complete, fairly straightforward. Water projects, fairly straightforward, but community support, unknown, right? Like we don't have any idea at this point what the level of support is for the community. If 90% don't want it,
Why are we wasting
why
our time?
are we wasting time evaluating, right? So just things like that. Another flag, it's more of a highlight on that. The water source for Churchville is the town of New Glasgow. So we do have a water agreement in place with the town. We're right now, and I've put 50 to 60%, and that is factoring in the fact we're adding McClellan's Brook on. We're probably only in the 40s right now, but when we add McClellan's Brook Colburn, that's going to bring us up to 60%. So that's there, and there are, I'll say, politics and things that you have to do with agreements like that, right?
It's like going to Geneva.
Exactly. So things like that. So is it a project, when we look down at the kind of the project is an essential project, desirable, acceptable. It's an acceptable project in that it's a good project. There's nothing wrong with the project. It just hasn't really been identified as a high priority at this point, or it doesn't seem to meet all the tick boxes, so it's something that you can do. And then, is it deferrable? Yes. But what is the impact of if you defer it, right? So as far as on municipal services, there's really no impact if you defer it, right? It doesn't really impact anything you're doing today. It does have an impact on those potential residents who may have poor water. It certainly has a high impact on them.
Yeah.
And really, the other thing is you're deferring is your costs, your inflationary pressures, right? Every year that you defer something, it doesn't seem things get cheaper to build, right? So that's kind of that one. Same way the next project, Lina C, water extension, 3.1 million. Again, can we afford to do that on our own? Probably not. The second red flag there is there's, again, no infrastructure project or program out there right now that you can readily tap. The next kind of flag down there, moderate to low community support for it. We did a survey, we didn't get a great response from them. It's high level, so do we have confidence that it's needed or wanted? Can't say that for sure based on the responses we received to date. Again, the next one, Town of New Glasgow water agreement, is an issue there. Pleasant Valley water, basically same story. The only thing I would say on this one, difference community support, well demonstrated. Councillor Parker hit every door that is in the project area and basically got 100% acceptance that they would all want to be part of the project, right? So that one I can say we have a good demonstrated community support. The distributional effects, kind of compared to the other two don't have a great impact on the system per se. The Pleasant Valley one would potentially have an impact on the overall system because that area, we do experience a high level of THMs in the summer, so we exceed what the national standard is, and a lot of that is due, like,
Dead ends.
the chemistry of the water and how quickly it turns over. So in the summer months, you lose the school, right? So your volume drops, so the water doesn't turn over. So the more users we add to it, the more water it'll continuously turn over. So it does have a bit of an impact on the overall chemistry of the system. So that one is a plus for that. The other flag there is the town of Westville. We have an agreement with the town of Westville that basically says we can buy 30,000 gallons a day. We're probably at about 50% of that. Westville has a master agreement with the town of New Glasgow, and they're at capacity. So we're at the end of the pipe, right? So they can't get any more than they're allocated. So like they're, say, 300,000 that they're allocated a day, our 30,000 is included in that, and they're at the 300,000. So
It's their
that has an
distribution
impact
system.
on us,
It's their distribution
right?
system.
So, so that is a bit of a red flag, or I'd put it as more cautionary, but it is a kind of a flag. So those are kind of the water project. The other thing that with water projects that we have to do, and the general principle is that you cannot add users to the utility if they have a negative effect on the utility.
Yeah.
So when you're putting in these costs, is it water main, and the depreciation on that, that cost goes in. And it's a 50-year, 2%, I think it's the rate, or maybe it's 4%, whatever the rate is. If you're not adding a lot of users, you're not covering that cost. So that cost is being borne by everybody on the utility. And the utility review board says users that are already on the system shouldn't be paying for the future.
So if I could ask another question, sort of related to that.
And water is not mandatory.
Yeah,
That's the other part.
that's one of my comments was sewer, you have to take it if it runs by your house. Water, you don't.
Right.
So with the water, I kind of lost my train of thought here for a second, but the water, it's regulated by the utility, so the process for Colburn and McCollum's Brook, they would have had to go through this exercise with the UARB to get our water
So
extension.
we're doing that now.
Okay,
Right? So one of the things they will do, they will approve it if there's a compelling case safety component,
right.
right? So they will approve them that way. But they're very, they kind of give you the message, we're doing it, but
Yeah.
it's not something they want to do.
So I saw, you're okay? Okay, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just what Brian was talking about, there's this very high level of need for water out in my district. And that's why everybody signed that petition, because
Was,
the lack of water this time of year, it's drying up here, they're not gonna have water right away here. And I'm just trying to get support for that, I guess, but it's between the lack of water, the other issues are the water is full of mud or salt. So that's why I'm speaking to this. I'm hoping to get support around this table for it, but
so,
just so you know, that's why everybody's signing, because they don't have water, they get terrible water. Anyhow, I'll leave it with you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
just on that, Brian, is the process, should it be a municipal run process to see if there's interest in that project? Should we be doing the mail-outs from the municipality? I know I've gone around in my district, and I'm not sure if it's the best way to do it, because some people may feel compelled to say yes.
I'm not going to say one way is better than the other. We can certainly do the process internally. The process that Councillor Parker did going door to door, and the petition is signed. There's nothing wrong with that process either, right?
No.
But we can certainly do the process internally, and which we did with the Linus one. The letters went out from here, right? And we did it for Thorburn, McCollum's Brook as well. So we can do it either way.
Okay.
At the end of the day, the results are, I will say the door-to-door one is probably more effective in getting responses.
Absolutely.
Type thing, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, either one works.
Yeah.
But we can certainly do the
If
process.
if it is a door-to-door, let me ask you this. If it is a door-to-door, could the information on the petition be standardized?
Mhm.
Because I can
Yeah,
go
we've
to,
done
I
it
can
that
knock on.
way. We did it that way in Salem. The information was, we provided the costing information for the petition. Yeah, so at the end of the day, it's the same.
Yeah.
The information would be the same.
Okay. Counselor Parker, do you have another question, or you? Oh, that's okay, just checking. Okay, so we did the water, now we're on the sidewalks. Okay, Westville Road.
Yeah, so the Westville Road one is still here. I'm not sure if it's something we should be considering year after year, or if it just goes away. I don't know. So anyways, this one in particular is the connection from New Glasgow to under the highway. The cost estimate, $1 million, that's probably out of date at this point. The affordability, same as the water projects, there needs to be some program to help along that. The rest of it, feasibility to complete, red flag there, very complicated. Community support, unknown level of community acceptance or want, but it used to be something we were kind of hit up about. It's been quiet the last couple of years, so yeah, I don't know how you judge that one. Disruption, probably a high degree of disruption there for the construction. So there's few red flags on that one.
Go ahead, Counselor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This has been an issue since I've become a counselor. An issue since I've become a counselor. And probably 8, 9 years ago, 10 years ago, there was a study done. And one of the recommendations was that there was a lane reconfiguration under the bridge. So it wasn't about the construction of the sidewalk, it was about a lane configuration to accommodate a sidewalk where it is now, where there'd be room now. So I'm just wondering if that's on a shelf somewhere that we can pull off, have another look at it, and have a discussion about it. It was probably done 8 years, 9 years ago. It was a $25,000 study that was done, put on a shelf somewhere in here. And it wasn't about tunneling through. It wasn't about putting anything over top of the highway. It was about the lane configuration under the bridge. And nothing ever happened to that. So if we could kind of revisit that and have a look and see if there's any way to.
Yeah, so that was a recommendation. There was never an actual study completed to prove or disprove that feasibility. So that wasn't the part of that transportation was, is there the ability to do lanes? There was never anything done in terms of proving that, whether or not that was even feasible.
So can we go and see if that's provable? Can we do that
We would
if we have it?
We would have to do a traffic impact study. The department would have to approve a traffic impact study
Can we ask for that?
in the terms of reference. We can ask for it, we have to pay for it.
Can we find out what the cost is and explore that?
Yeah, we're probably in the 15 to 20 range.
Okay, thank you.
Just on that. You know, I hate to say that you're gonna waste your money with a traffic impact study. First, you gotta go to the Department of Public Works and see if they'll allow you to do it. You see what they're doing down Blue Acres? How far off the pedestrians are away from, they get a meter grass, they get a curb, a meter grass, then the sidewalk. And then we went in, instead of being the sidewalk out by the traffic, they had to go in behind the pillars and cut in there and put a retaining wall up. There's not very much room underneath those underpasses to do that. So I think the first thing is to have a conversation with the provincial government to see if they allow something like that to happen. If they do, then do a traffic impact study, but I wouldn't waste my money on that until you find out if they'll allow something to be under that structure. I know it's been talked about with design and everything like that, and I know they did look at reducing the lanes and things like that, so that's probably done by the province with their design, so I think that's the first conversation you should have, so.
So how do we go about having this conversation?
You go see the area manager and talk to the area manager and just see what was done on it so far, so Keith McDonald, so that's who I'd be talking to.
Logan, can you and I make an arrangement for that?
Yes, yeah, and we have had high level discussions with Keith before on that. We've never gotten a flat out no or a flat out yes, but we can certainly go and meet with him.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I basically agree with Councillor Palmer, what he said, because I know that piece of road there very well. I go through there several times a day sometimes, and it's very busy. Whether you're coming down the ramp beside Wendy's there or whatever and trying to turn left, it's a real crammed place at a lot of times, at busy times especially. To take a lane out of there, which is what was suggested, it has to be the left turning lane to toward Antigonish. That's going to jam the cars up because those ones are now sitting over in that lane, so they're not holding the traffic up going toward Westville. But all of a sudden, you take that left turning lane out of there, you've got a mess of traffic backing right up to the Highland Mall, which then causes everything else to bind up. So I doubt very much if that's feasible to take that lane out of there. And that's what's held this one up for a long while, is because then the options become, as Councillor Turner mentioned, over the top or through the tunneling through, very, very expensive and not necessarily terribly safe. Not that they can't be done, but I also question the demand for how much money we're talking, how much disruption, as Brian mentioned, to do something like that. Unless the province is doing something, changing things at the same time somehow, or sometime, but they just spent a lot of money. They were there every night pretty near for, I don't know, 2 years it seemed to me, big lights and everything working underneath there, changing all of that, so I doubt if they're gonna come along and change it all again. I'm not just sure what they're doing, replacing something, but I think that project is, very questionable because of if you take the need and you take the costs and the upset that it caused. I'm sure if somebody gets killed walking through there, all of a sudden the picture changes in a hurry. We should have done that. But right now, looking at it, I can't see it being feasible for this county unless somebody else is gonna pour a lot of money into it for sure. But I don't have a problem with asking and talking to Keith McDonald and getting his opinion. But again, we may be wasting money if we went ahead and asked for the study no matter what and found out that, well, the province already knew, what was feasible and what wasn't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just on that, about that sidewalk and stuff there, they did a great job after a long time of fixing the hole in the road there. It's certainly a little hole in the road, took a lot of work, a big patch to get it done right, but it seems to be done right now, and I'm pleased about that. But the other thing that I wanted to say, and Randy pretty well covered it all, but anybody that drives through Blue Acres now to Glasgow to the bridge, they got to be impressed with the work that was done with Clifton's there. The way they did it and how fast they did it and what a nice looking job. Like, I seen lots of sidewalks go in over the years in different places, but I never seen anything that every move they make counts, it seems like, unless you're there and see something. But the truck came with them big retaining blocks, set them right into place, and then as soon as they were in place, the cement went on the hill, and there's not a whole lot left to do there now. I would say by the end of this week, it'll be pretty well time for Andy to get his picture in the paper cutting the ribbon again. But anyway, it's all right. I'll wave going by. But it it looks terrific. And maybe that someday we'll be able to see outside the box somehow, and they might be able to do something over there, because it was when the wellness center came is when they wanted it fixed, okay? And we talked for meeting after meeting to find out about getting some street lights. We found out it was gonna be $38,000 at the time to put one light in that underneath part. 38,000. And that was 12 years ago, was it? So, anyway, that's how much everything costs out in that particular part. And I don't know what they did for 2 years under there. They were just drilling holes and must have been digging her from behind, but it was a big, big project. Somebody made a pile of money. But anyway, enough of that. But I just wanted to say about how good Plymouth looks. Thank you.
Great in Plymouth now, Chester.
Yeah, well, it's time to close her down. Then we'll change the name.
Okay, let's move on to River John sidewalk.
So River John, the installation from the village out to the service station, cost estimate of 1.5 million. Affordability, existing programs do exist, I guess, or can exist. The gas tax is there, and the growth in renewable infrastructure development fund can be applied for on an annual basis as well. That's where we get the money to do Blue Acres this year, is from that fund, the grid, as they call it. The feasibility to complete River John, somewhat, I guess, cautionary there. The department will allow a variance, I guess, on their standards, but it's still going to be tight when you look at what's along there. So there could be some constraints there. Community support, put a high level there. We did receive a petition with 300 names on it. We'll consider that community support. Not sure if they all live in River John or where they're from, but they took the effort to put their name on a petition. So that's kind of that project. Sidewalk project's fairly straightforward to build, but there are some constraints, potential constraints out there on that one. So,
Councillor Bailey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, on some building constraints, they gave us that exception. I mean, I can understand that it's going to go close to Linda Moreau's place, but I think that's the only house that it was going to affect. Is that not true?
Thanks for the question. It's not just about the houses. It does include the houses, but we did get that reduced cross-section, but it also includes poles and other infrastructure. So, and Brian's got identified that there are potential challenges with the stormwater infrastructure. So the cost still remains possibly quite variable, but we had to take a conservative approach with it, just with the number of other things we're going to be dodging. So there are some buildings that encroach, like you mentioned, relatively close, but then there are also issues around poles and driveways and stormwater infrastructure. And stormwater infrastructure in particular could be a big one. It could lead to additional retaining walls and different things like that, like we've seen in Blue Acres.
Okay. A couple other ones. Okay, the petition, I believe there was 2 of them, and it was over 500, just so. And I don't know, they all live in River John. My name was not on it. But my name's not in any petition. And the last thing is, when I got reelected, I was told by the people involved in this project that the estimate was in between 300,000 and 400,000. Now I can see that doubling over the years, or even I could probably set aside triple, but 5 times? What kind of an estimate was given first? Just something out of the sky, or was it, you know, how can I go back to them and say, oh no, the project is now 1.5 million, when they were told it would be in between 3 and 4?
Thanks for the question. It's a good question. I think we've learned through the Blue Acres project how much prices have increased for sidewalk construction. So say you account for doubling that way, and then these unknowns as well. The only way to tell for sure is going to be through doing a design process and finding out exactly what special criteria we're going to be looking at. Again, like those retaining walls in Blue Acres, that was something additional that we didn't anticipate early in that project. So if we find that we can work with the province and work with the homeowners, and we don't end up with any big additional requirements, then maybe the actual tendered value gets down closer to something that, is maybe twice or something like that, what you had told them originally. But at this point, there are just too many unknowns until we get into the construction or into the detailed design phase to know for sure.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, yeah, I understand that there's a lot of unknowns, but the unknowns haven't changed in 3 or 4 years. So to tell the residents that it was estimate of this price, and I understand based on Blue Acres, it doubled, or well, maybe a little bit more than doubled. But even doubling is not 5 times. And that's my big issue, is when people look at these here, at all the sidewalk requests that are in, I mean, this one here costs pretty near as much as probably 3 or 4 of the other ones. And to me, it is not right to have told them that first time around that it was 300,000 or 400,000 if it wasn't. I understand it was an estimate, and I'm willing to say, yeah, it could double, it could even went to $1 million, but I'm not very pleased with it being 1.5, because to me that is not giving them the correct information, or most of the correct information at the start.
Just on that, that number was not for the residents, the number was for council though. The cost estimate was for council.
Well, it was Mike Topley that told me what the number was.
Well, that may have been the number they came up with, but we don't
So
we don't
what-
give the number for the community, we give the number for.
So what was the number the council gave, 1.5 then?
No, it's definitely up, but it's based on, like Blue Acres is about 600 meters and this is about 1 kilometer, right? So Blue Acres came in at 900,000. So it's using just a linear cost estimate,
Okay.
right?
Okay, I'll verify that, but I was under the understanding that they were told that Mike Topley was in here and looking at the screen on the computer, and it was figured out to be between 300,000 and 400,000.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we have to be careful when we're looking at sidewalks in general, and I'm not speaking just of the River John one, although I will speak some on that, but one of the big costs that we have is, yes, it costs capital to put these sidewalks in, but then the cost of maintaining them after that, the winter maintenance cost, has gotten really high. And it's even tough to get bids in a lot of places now, but so therefore you've got one bid you have to take. But overall, again, coming back to when both Wayne and I are signing checks at different times, boy, there's a lot of costs in sidewalks other than just building them. And then, of course, there's the maintenance. We got several, I think, I'm not sure what areas they're in. I think one is in Larry's area, and several that have to be fixed now. They're just in terrible shape. Somebody's going to end up tripping and falling eventually. I think we did fix the one up in the River John area before, the one that runs from the NSLC down to the library. I think that one was repaired. But, so the winter maintenance and the repair costs are becoming high, so we have to be careful. You know, there's a lot of areas in our county that would say, well, I'd like to have a sidewalk. I'll get a petition together and I'll get a sidewalk from here to here, from here to there. And that's all it takes to bring it here, you know, and then whether it makes it through council here to get put on the list, but there's no very scientific way to do this. It's just we're going on demand from whoever happens to say, well, I'd like to have a sidewalk here. I know there's tight spots in River John. I know that area pretty well from Letex up to the bridge. There are tight spots, but it's a long stretch of sidewalk, which makes me question some, you know, what the usage might be, and you can't tell that ahead of time till you put it there, of course, but, you know, that, whether people driving out to, Maze or whatever, are they gonna walk or are they gonna drive, you know, for that distance? It's quite a distance, so I think that has to be considered some. We have no way of measuring the usage ahead of time, no more than we did, you know, with the East River Road one. That was a contention for a long while, how much usage will be. But that is a long stretch, and I wonder if they've looked at or considered, or we could consider a shorter stretch and then maybe someday extend it the rest of the way. But Ronnie would know better than me what the usage is like in terms of that first half of that kilometer, whatever it is, compared to the second half. Is there a way to cut the cost some if we had to, or cut the complications by looking at maybe breaking it up and doing a half or whatever and doing the other half later? That's just a suggestion. I'm not trying to rule it out. I'm just looking at the practicality of not just this sidewalk, but all sidewalks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The number was 375, was what our last year's estimate was for council. Yeah.
I guess just to the warden, I mean, they use it for exercise along there. There's a lot of people that do walk. I'm not in the village every day, or doing half. Yeah, I guess it would be possible to do half. I don't know. I guess going back to the Elmer McKay's days, it's the same where you build a road to nowhere if we only do it half, because most of the time they'll be going to Letex anyway. And I think it would be from Letex to McLean Street that would be the most expensive if we did that half first. So I don't know how much we would actually save, but hey, I'm willing to accept anything that is council's willing to do.
Okay. We move on to Little Harbor sidewalk. We've been talking about this for a little while as well, so.
Yeah, so Little Harbor, pretty much the same. The feasibility to complete still is an issue with the crosswalk not being, it's not allowed. It's not, there's no mid-road crosswalks allowed. So how we overcome that, I don't know. Maybe it's a traffic impact study to turn the stop sign to a three-way stop at the store. Right? I don't know. I don't know how popular that would be, but that's, would the department entertain something like that? And then it's not a mid-cross because there's a stop sign, right? I don't know. So that's a constraint that we still haven't overcome. I think community support, I've flagged that as yellow. I think we've seen that there's a high demand for it, or a want or desire for it. So I think that one's fine. Other than that, it's fairly straightforward project, straight run, right? But that crosswalk is an issue at some point. If your destination is the store, you gotta get to it. So,
Councillor Wadden, would you like to speak on this?
Sure, thank you. Just to that, Brian, I noticed on the Logan Road, it's in the 80-kilometer area too of that road, prior to the town signs for the town of Trenton, so I'm assuming it's the highways area. They do have a crosswalk. It's not a crosswalk, it's 2 signs for walkers crossing. So if they can do, that's an 80-kilometer area. So if they can do something like that in an 80-kilometer, I don't see why we couldn't verify or confirm that they can't do that in 50, because that is all 50 from the senior citizens right through to the store. So it's, maybe something else that we can look into just a little deeper, because it's quite a doable sidewalk otherwise. And I know it would be really well received in that area. The area from Point 44 right down to the air search or the ground search and rescue, that washes out terribly. They can't even walk on that side. You have people going over on their ankles there, and it's just really dangerous. The one good thing at the seniors now is that the little fellow that had the walker and was walking in the middle of the road, he's no longer there. So I'm not sure what happened to him, but at least he's not there. But it would be a real asset to the community to have, somehow for those residents of the seniors, most of them who do not have cars can get to the store. So it's something I really wish we could consider. And as we wait every year or push this down the road further, the costs are going up higher and higher. So, and where we could possibly apply for the community grant with Canada, it'd be an opportunity to get that small. It's a small project compared to some of the other ones that are on here, and I think it's just quite doable if we can just clear up the crossing part of it. Thank you.
Okay. Do you want to go through the last 4, I guess? Oh, pardon me, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Maybe Debbie and Larry, you go with Larry when you go talk to Greg McDonald and see what that'll be a start.
And I should say that from our last ratepayers meeting, they are going to make changes to that intersection. They're making new signage. I'm not sure if it's going to be a stop sign. That's what we were hoping for. He didn't confirm that, but I know there is new signage going in because they're having so much trouble at that intersection. So.
It's a busy spot. Go ahead.
I missed some discussion on this, but I think the problem has always been how to get them safely across, and any discussions Wayne or Brian and I had was that you need a full stop there. Is that what you're going to ask Keith McDonald for, is to try and get that? Because if you don't stop the traffic, it's not safe to let those people cross, those seniors.
Well, I was just explaining to them that there is, in the 80-kilometer area on Logan Road, there is signage for people crossing the road when one part of the trail connects to the other. And it's an 80-kilometer speed limit through there when you're coming down the hill on Logan Road, coming up the hill. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But we did ask for a stop sign. We want a 3-way stop at that intersection. He did get back to me and said they're going to make some changes to the signage, but he didn't say what the changes would
The
be.
signage won't do it. I think it has to be a stop there, I think, or else it's.
Yeah, well, that's, I think, Wayne's suggestion of maybe me sitting in with Larry and
Okay,
letting
thank
me
you.
work. Thank you.
Councillor Palmer?
Just on that Logan Road, is that in the town of Trenton? Yeah, it's town Trenton. So they can regulate their own, they can put that in. The province, I don't think will ever put it. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's town Trenton.
I know when we did when we built the sidewalks on McGregor Avenue, we were only going to come up to the first entrance of the wellness center and do the crosswalk into the parking lot, and we were told no, so we had to build all the way out to, and that's the answer we get all the time, is you can't do a mid-cross. We can certainly have the discussion with them, but there may be exceptions that they've approved out there.
Stop sign would do it.
Okay.
So I guess the next 2 are sidewalks, and sidewalks are all basically the same. Truro Road one, unknown level of community acceptance. I don't think it's been demonstrated there on that one, at least anything that we have in the file. The other thing that I think on that one, it borders the town of Westville. So any consideration on that project should be, if anything, should be a joint project. And then the Valley View Villa Plymouth sidewalk, the new one. The only thing I would say there, level of community support, I'm not sure has been demonstrated, but generally fairly straightforward, like most sidewalks, they are fairly straightforward to complete.
Okay.
That's kind of the,
I'll let Councillor Turner speak to Truro, and I'll speak to the Plymouth sidewalk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Truro Road sidewalk, I think this is the request I put in a number of years ago. And there was a matrix that we had to fill out in order to even have it considered. And it was about proximity to a school, traffic count. There was a whole series of questions that was asked about that. I think that was done in terms of it, and I don't know if it passed acceptance to be considered. Is that the same one that was done years ago?
it could be, and all that matrix does is determines who pays. So if it achieves a certain score, then 100% of the project is funded by the municipality. If it receives a score, say 75 plus, it's 100%. If it's 50 to 75%, it's 50-50 cost share, so there'd be an area rate established for the capital charge, and if it's under 50%, if the people want it, they pay 100% of the cost. So that's what that matrix does. That's all that does, is determines the level of funding.
So the matrix is applied to the other
I know it was done for
sidewalks?
Little Harbor, and Little Harbor met the threshold off 100% being funded
Okay.
by the municipality. I would have to verify River John, just based on most of the criteria, it's probably gonna pass, right?
No, just asking the question.
Yeah, type thing, so, it probably would pass. Hasn't been done on the Plymouth one, I can say that, but, there's a lot, like some of the big drivers are gonna be there. You got a child care and you have a nursing home, they drive the marks up, right? So,
Warden Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oops, claims this evening. I'm not just entirely clear where this one is. So are we calling from the wellness center heading toward Westville, are we calling that the Truro Highway, or is that or is that the Westville Road?
That's
When I
Westville
see the
Road.
sign for Truro Road, it generally swings off of that road. So which section of road are we talking about here? If I could ask through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Turner.
Where the request was was from a couple of residents just past the Ben's Bakery outlet, right there. Do you know where that is?
Heading toward the old
Heading
drive-in.
towards the drive-in.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
where it was.
That piece in there,
Yeah.
and is that's technically Truro Road, is it? All of that, okay. I wasn't sure because there's different signs in there, Old Truro Road and a few others, but, no, again, unless we've got enough demand and, you know, enough expectation of users, I think we have to be really careful how many sidewalks, as I said before, because of the overall, costs of keeping them up. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so any other comments on these two sidewalks? I'll just speak to the Plymouth sidewalk. That came out of a public meeting we held with the residents of Plymouth when the engineering firm announced that they're building the 144-bed nursing home, and there's a lot of concern over traffic volume increases to and from that facility. Since then, there's, as Brian mentioned, there's a 58-space daycare across the road from that, so it's gonna drive the traffic count up in that area. The Valley View Villa, or the new nursing home in Plymouth, isn't gonna open till mid-2028. So this is more of a exercise to get out in front of it, instead of having to react to something when everything opens up. The daycare is gonna open next year at some point. So that's where that's driven from it, and it came from the residents of the area. Okay, go ahead.
This Truro Road sidewalk included portions between the Irving, Tim Hortons Dairy Queen, and Angel Street as well on Truro Road. So it sounds like it's slightly different than the one that you had mentioned, Councillor Turner.
When I put the request in, it wasn't for that particular stretch, so where that request came from, I'm not sure. Unless it was just, I put it in and it was expanded. Somebody decided to look at it as an expanded project. But the residents that asked for it, that were along that stretch around where the bins, that's who I got the request from, and that's where I was expecting the sidewalk, so.
Councillor Parker.
Oh, just, sorry,
go ahead.
if I could just clarify quickly, sorry. That request, this Angel Street to the Irving, had come through a letter that was sent a year or so ago to, from local business, the daycare in that area.
I was not made aware of that.
Okay. Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a lot of sidewalk projects here. I'm sure they all got merit, some more so than others, but I just wanted to try to tell people how important water is in my area. This is an essential for living. A lady there was telling me that she feels like she's living in a camp. She has everything she needs except water. So I just wanted to lay that out there. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And the last two on this list are more infrastructure related, right? They're sewage treatment plant repairs and pumping stations.
Correct. So the Thorburn sewage treatment repairs, repairs to the blowers, which are nearing end of life, and repairs to the structure, the RBC, which is the mechanical structure component out there. So 100,000 is the estimate. Fairly straightforward to complete. I think under environmental, required to really keep the plant functioning effectively and properly. It really probably does under kind of a weighting. It's an essential project. If the system goes down, we have a number of users that are not going to be very happy with us on the system. So it has a direct impact on the users of the system today. So it has an impact on municipal services, existing municipal services, so that whole area would be affected. Has a high impact on the individual properties in that area, who rely on the system for their wastewater treatment. And similarly with the Hopewell Eureka PS1 pump, replace the pump. Repairs to that station were tried, but were not successful. Estimate 75,000, so again, really required to keep the system functioning effectively. The project is really an essential repair and infrastructure project. Again, high impact on the system, and high impact on the individual users that are connected to the system if the system goes down. So, and really with all the projects I've said before, if you don't do them, you're facing inflationary pressures, right, every year. But I think these last two do fall kind of into that more essential project.
Okay. Gordon Parker?
I'm not even sure, I think we had this discussion before about whether we should be voting on those last two. Those are, to me, necessary projects that have to be done to maintain our infrastructure. They're not things that we'd like to have or our residents would like to have. They're things that somebody made a decision a long time ago to have them. Now we got them. They need to be maintained. I thought we had said that perhaps in the future we wouldn't even be voting on ones like that. They would just be accepted as the first ones we do, and then everything else would come after that. But that's up to council what we want to do, but it seems like a no-brainer on those ones. Thank you.
Just on that, ultimately, you have to vote on them because you set the priority. So we can just tell you,
Put it at the top of the list.
yeah, that we recommend these need to be done, but ultimately council's the only one that can determine it. So that's why we're still here.
I agree with the warden too, like, but I'll make a motion to put those two on the list, because if those two don't get done and the system goes down, then we'll have a lot of complaints here, so I'll make that a motion. Second it.
It's moved and seconded to take these two off of that matrix, I guess we'll call it, and move them over to priorities for our capital planning. Is there any comments or questions on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Contraminded? Motion carried. So for the remainder of these, Brian, let me ask you this. Like, I'm reading your memo. When do we have to submit our 5-year capital plan to the province?
What we would like to do is send you the survey in the next day or two. You do the voting, and then at the July council, we'll have those results, and basically be hopefully in a position to provide you the financing plan for the first 1 to 15, and then you approve your
Year
kind of capital
fives.
budgets.
These could be considered year fives
If any of them make the list, they're,
down the
yeah,
road.
they could be out, right?
My other question is, some of these projects are not well developed as far as community input, to the level of surveys and door-to-door knocking and all that stuff. Should that work be done first before we set any of these as priorities on our capital list?
I don't think,
Do we have time?
yeah, I
Like,
don't think you would have time to do that and meet, the deadline's September 30th for the capital plan for the province. But ideally, we have a bunch of things on the capital plan that are included in capital out of revenue.
Yeah.
So the plan to move them forward as quickly as possible.
And I guess my other comment is that, and I guess I'll save my comment. Go ahead, Debbie, if you'd like first.
No, this is, excuse me, mostly a question for Logan. Just on Hidden Cove Drive, does that fall under another project class?
Hidden Cove Drive was included
in the earlier capital budget items, the capital out of revenue?
Yeah, we just showed that as capital out of revenue. Because I think there was general consensus to do that months ago.
Okay, so my other question I had for this was, like, years ago, when I first got on council, and for a number of years, for the first 8 years, I'll say, our 5-year capital plan had things like Little Harbor sidewalks on it, and it had Churchville water on it, and they just fell off, but they were always in year 5. They never developed past that. And we're going to set our capital priorities or planning for projects. And a lot of these are good projects. They're all good projects. They all have merit, as we listen to. Why are we saying no to some of them right off the hop if we can develop those projects over time? Like, why aren't they all on the 5th year of the capital plan? Like, I don't understand why because some of them will never make it to the top, like.
But I guess that in part is the answer. If everything's a priority, nothing's a priority,
I just.
right? So you identify the projects that you consider priorities, you map them out over a 5-year period. As something gets done, capacity opens up that something may move up, or work is done on a project, i.e. you go out and you define what the project is, you develop the community support, infrastructure projects or programs open up, right? So a lot of the variables will change for you.
So I guess the only thing I'll say, like, the Plymouth sidewalk project never got on a capital list until maybe last year. Like, it happened. And I don't even know how it got on the capital list, other than the fact that there was funding for it. But I'm not sure why we can't entertain some of these, like, we're gonna say no to all these projects when they all have merit. They all have merit. So, Warden Parker?
No, I don't agree with putting them all on the priority list. They all have merit. Yeah, a sidewalk up in Mount Tom might have merit too, but, you know, do we take everything that people bring to us or ask for, or somebody asks for, and just say, well, because it's asked for, therefore we're gonna put it on our priority list and do it? I think we as council, I guess, are responsible for making proper judgments on whether this is good expenditure of taxpayers' money to do this on a water project, or to do that on a sidewalk, or whatever other projects are out there. If we take everything that comes at us and say, well, it's now a priority because somebody gave it to us, I think we will get some far out ones there that we are punishing somebody coming forward to try and maintain them. So I think we have to be very careful to make sure it is a good project. That not every project comes, they may all be a good idea, but they're not necessarily a good and affordable project. So I think we have to go through this process of judging them and making sure that that they are good projects and affordable projects. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor McDonald?
Just looking for some verification here. So we will be voting on these, just these. Those are already on the list.
Those are on the list. So what council votes on those 15 is the financing off them. So certain projects can take place in year 1. So that's what's included in finance this year. Other ones may be year 2, year 3, just based on affordability or whatever.
So these will be 4 and 5 years earlier?
If they make the list, they
yes.
could be year 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So in order to make the list, it's 50% plus 1. You have to have majority of council has to say, yes, we think this is a priority project for us.
Personally, I mean, the waters and that stuff, it's almost essential to have water to live. And I mean, that's my part anyway. Thank you.
Excuse me, just to me, some of these projects are big projects, and they're not going to get done until we get government funding for the third funding. We have some good projects that we might be able to do through council if we go ahead and move on them. And yes, it might include sidewalks, but it could also include other things. So I think there has to be a way that we can move forward in some of the smaller projects without kicking some off. Like, it just doesn't make sense that if we could get a couple of sidewalks done, for example, over the course of the year or two, while we wait to try and get government funding, because I agree, like the water and sewer, and even though there's none in my area, it's very important to the county to have that water and sewer, and we want to see it happen. So I don't think it's fair to penalize the smaller projects because we're waiting to do these big ones. I just think there has to be a way that we can move forward with some of the smaller ones. And I'm not sure what that is, but I just don't think removing them every year, and I use the Little Harbor sidewalk as an example because it's been on here ever since I've been on council. And it made it 1 year or 2 years in the 5-year plan and then get kicked off because all the water projects we were doing took precedent over this small little sidewalk. It's all it is. But anyways, I just think there has to be a better way of putting our projects together to make it fair for everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just on that, there's a lot of these projects that have issues. Until those issues are settled, like the Little Harbor sidewalk, if you don't get the approval, and that's why Blue Acres wasn't on there, because the province wouldn't give the approval to do the work until you head up. And it depends who's in power at a certain time and things like that, people willing to try to move the projects along. But when you get an issue, and to Councillor Parker's area, like, you got an issue there with the town of Westville at their 100% capacity. So even though we put this on our list to say, we're gonna do that water project, until Westville has a higher volume of water, till they decrease their number that they use each, which I take is through leakage and things like that, that project will never get done. And that's the same as Little Harbor sidewalk, because they want a crosswalk on a hill, on a route highway. The province wouldn't approve that. So until you get those things settled, those projects will never get done. That's why they.
Yeah, I guess the problem is with what Councillor Palmer said is, we don't know if they should be on the list or not because maybe they're not doable. But if we don't put them on the list, nobody's going to check them out. Is that true? Pretty well.
No, we can work towards or try and eliminate the constraints. Like, the big constraint in River John was the profile, right? Well, the department has eliminated that profile requirement, or will allow us to do the variance on the profile. So
Okay.
that constraint has been somewhat removed.
But, so would that require a motion from council to, okay, so Councilor Turner and Councilor Waddon's gonna, and meet with Logan with the, I guess my question is, does that, once they meet, then it's gonna come back to I guess my question is, it seems to be a lot of things that, right now, if you look to include those 2 projects that are being done, I mean, we got, 18 million on the books now of projects. So you take those 2 off, that's roughly 8.5 off. If we added these, we'd still be just around 20 million. I guess my point is I think
the people that are wanting projects done, if they can see it, that it's on the 5-year plan, even if a study's done and it's not feasible, if the one in River John comes in at 1.5 million and we can't get government money, I have no problem going back to them and saying, it's just not feasible to do. I have no problem with that. My problem is that there's a lot of our projects just seem to be sitting in no man's land, and it's discussed, you know, at property services maybe once or twice a year, and that's it. So I guess I would be more interested in them all going on. I don't think the government's going to care whether we do have 20 million on our 5-year plan or 40 million on our 5-year plan. At least we know that they're being developed and we can move them forward, and we can start checking to see if there's this money, other funding for it, such as what is it called, the provincial, provincial and federal money. It just, to me, I think there's only probably, on our present plan, there's probably no government money out there. Would that be a true statement for any of those projects that's on of the 15?
Gas tax.
Yeah, but as far as infrastructure money or anything like that, or whatever they call it now, there's none really available other than gas tax.
McClellan's Brooks funded.
Oh, yeah, no,
It's
I'm not
funded.
counting those two. Those, as far as I'm concerned, those two should come off the list because they're being,
But that's how it advanced. It advanced because the funding became available.
yeah.
It was
And I
identified-
understand that.
It was
just-
identified as
To me,
priority, though.
you know,
If it's not on your list, you can't get government money.
yeah, that's right. And that's why I'm questioning why they all can't go on it. I know that's a lot, but, I mean, at the end of the day, at least it puts it one step further. Maybe it will stay on that step for years and years, but at least it's being dealt with.
If you look at sidewalks, though, one of the project categories that comes out under is grid. So if you have them all on your plan, which one gets done? Because you can only do one. You can only get funding for one.
Yeah, but I mean.
So that's what the prioritization does. It says, this
So
is your
there's-
priorities.
Yeah, there's 6 sidewalk jobs there, and then there's, I think, 1 or 2 on that's already been approved. Again, it's, you know, to rate them, I mean, I'm sure Councillor Palmer's, or not Councillor Thompson's not gonna give the River John one top vote, and I'm not gonna give Plymouth the top vote. So it's, I don't know how, I don't know, at the end of the day, I can't see why we can't put them all on it. That's just my opinion, and if it happens, it happens. If it don't, it don't.
Okay, Councillor Parker, Councillor Turner, and then Warden Parker. And I think I'm going to shut it down after that unless somebody has a motion. Oop.
Oh, I got it here now. I got a red light. I want to speak to Councillor Palmer's point there about no water being available from Westville. I still think we should get it put on the capital improvement planning project list here. I spoke to the CAO for the town of Westville here about a month ago, and they're planning on drilling wells and putting in their own well field out our way, Central West River. And that's an ongoing project as far as I know, so I believe this should be added to the list so when water is available, we can get it done. And Councilman McDonald spoke to it very well when he said this is an essential for living. You gotta have water. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for sidewalks, I'm looking for water. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I strongly feel that we need to prioritize, like I said before. You know, if we just take everything somebody throws at us, say it's all a priority, we're putting it all on the list, I don't think we're doing our job as council. I think we need to look at these hard and decide which ones if they're all important, which ones are the most important? I think if you don't prioritize what you're gonna do, then very little gets done. I think we have to go through that process, and I agree with Councillor Palmer, yes, there's some that have some problems, but we can still vote on them. And as Brian said, sometimes some of those problems get overcome, as they did in part for the River John sidewalk or other ones. If Westville finds more water or gets more water, sometimes the problems become overcome. So it doesn't mean we can't prioritize some of those ones. And yes, they're gonna be held up like the Little Harbor sidewalk until such point as we can get past whatever that's holding them up. But we do have to prioritize. I don't think we're doing our job if we don't. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive, though. I think that you can have a complete list with everything here and still prioritize. I mean, the two things are not mutually exclusive. You can do two things at the same time. You can prioritize them and leave them on the list and present them for the province to okay. I'm going to continue to look for a sidewalk under the underpass, regardless of what we come up against. And we talk about constraints. It's my job as the councillor for that district to push and push and push to try to get that resolved. Now, if we have to go through the province to do it, or we go try to get federal help, or whatever we have to do, that's my responsibility. And I think that we can leave them on, even though there's huge constraints for some of them and timelines for, but I think it's my job as the person representing this district to push for the ones in my district, and I think we have to do that. So I don't think the two things are mutually exclusive. I think we can leave the list together and present it and prioritize at the same time. Thanks.
Councillor Dewar.
Thank you. I think we could do an awful lot of these projects if we eliminate the first one. I was just wondering what we're gonna do that's gonna cost $450,000 to this building. That's, if we eliminated that, we could do some other projects. Another page.
Municipal building renovations,
Yeah,
phase
so it's
one.
renovations, it's additional office space and reconfiguration of it, and it's being funded out of the building reserve. So
Okay,
money was set aside years ago for that.
yeah.
Okay, then, if it's put away, it shouldn't even be on there. We're gonna do it anyway. Right? It's just like they said about those other projects, that the Plymouth sidewalk, and there was another project
In
there.
Clowns Brook.
Clowns Brook, it's already cut and dry, so when we go to
Still
vote,
has to be documented on your
Yeah.
taxable plan.
okay,
Yeah.
well, it should, but
Not
those
done.
three, when you're doing your monkey survey or whatever Sue Ann calls it, I'll be calling her because it doesn't work in Elgin. And I'm kind of pleased that way, then I can talk to somebody. But anyway, if those three are, long as we all know tonight that they're all looked after, why would we worry about where we voted them in?
1 to 15 are not under consideration.
No, they're already in there.
But
That was said from
the very first, I know, but
It's
like,
these,
it's just to make it right.
these 8 are the ones, do they get included or not?
In this year, or next year, or the 5 years.
Right. So
Okay.
right now, these 8 are not.
Okay,
are not
okay,
included anywhere,
okay, well, so that's the ones we're gonna add to this.
potentially.
Okay, so
Yes.
some of those ones that we're adding to it, like when I tried to get the sidewalk, Evan was still here and hopeful, okay? And then they were gonna do it, and if they were gonna pave, now it's, I don't know, it's quite a little while since quite a
Well, it's on there
Logan
right
came,
now,
yes, and
right?
I know it's there, but that's important too, to those people, because it runs from the post office up to the senior citizens. And when it was done, the county did it, and it was pavement. And it's terrible, deplorable. And I got a few people that keep fixing it up a little, not putting patches in, but getting rid of the holes and things like that. And so that's real important, and it's like Debbie said a few minutes ago, if we could do a bunch of these little projects that we know that we can likely handle, well, then when the big money comes for some of these other big projects, well, then we can go from there. But I think it's important, but I also have two on there to do with the sewer that has to be done anyway, right? So I don't wanna sound real greedy, but back when the Hopewell sidewalks, there was no Valley View gonna be in Plymouth or the new nursing home. Hopefully they'll change the name, call it the Thompson Nursing Home. And the roads, it was altogether different, right? This is all brand new now, and I'm for having a decent sidewalk there, because we fought hard here over the last 25 years to get the sidewalk out to Valley View and to Riverview Residential Center. It was big money for us at that time, but it got done, right? So it's all important. Every councillor's got something on there, or wished he had, or she had something on there. And hopefully when we come to the vote, and we'll try to
Okay.
be
I'm gonna
level
shut
her
her
off.
down after Randy, okay?
I just want to clarify something. I didn't mean that these projects shouldn't go on the list. I'm just saying that they have issues, and those issues got to be resolved before they get done. I agree, we got to have a priority list, 1 to 20, whatever. But we got to put them in certain orders, and then one might not get done that was number 9, or let's say number 10, and the one in number 15 because of the funding came through for that project, or it didn't have any issues. But you got to have a priority list. So.
Okay? So. Okay. Okay. So let's vote on that motion to remove the Hopewell, Eureka PS1 and the Thorburn sewage treatment plant repairs to the capital list tonight. And then we can, as they're necessary projects that we need to do. And the other ones, we can entertain a different motion, okay? So the motion's on the floor. Is there any further questions about those two? Question's been called. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Okay, Councillor Turner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion that we include the other, how many would be left?
7.
Other 7 to be
I think it's 7.
put on the priority list and to be maintained on the,
8, sorry.
8 of them to be maintained on the priority list, and just leave it at that, I guess. Nothing else needs to be in that motion?
No. Is there a seconder for that motion? It's seconded by Councillor Wadden. Any comments on the motion?
Are we going to do a survey to prioritize them, though? To put them on the list?
Yeah.
We are. Yeah. That's what,
So we're doing the survey now, is that what you're recommending?
okay.
Keep the whole list together and do them.
And the ones that make more than 50 plus 1 get on the list? Is that the way we're doing it?
No.
No, I think that's the intent of the motion. No,
No.
is to maintain the whole list and prioritize that. If it's less than 51 plus 1, from what I understand, does it drop off the list?
It just doesn't make the 5-year, it stays for future consideration.
So it drops off the list. It drops off the 5-year list.
It's not on the 5-year, none of these are on the 5-year list.
So
Right now.
I'm asking it to be put on the 5-year.
All 8 of those
All 8.
projects,
And to be prioritized,
and to work on them over the,
and it's simply to work on.
okay? Warden Parker?
I don't think, I feel we're going down the wrong road here. I think it's not due process. We have a job to do as council. We're trying to make everybody happy. Eat your cake and eat it too. I think it's really important that we pick the ones that make more than 50 plus 1, and those go on our 5-year plan, and the other ones stay in waiting, and along come some next year that get added to it, and we do the same thing. But I think we're making a big mistake by saying we can keep everybody happy just by letting on to people that you're still on the list.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the Warden Parker that we should go to the system that you've always done, or I think you've done here, is vote on this and determine which ones are gonna go on to be accepted and which ones aren't. It just makes sense to me. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any further comments on the motion on the table? Question's been called. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded? Nays, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. It's a tie, it looks like. Yep. Okay. Motion defeated. So, on that, we're going to get a survey monkey in the next day or two, and we're going to vote on these to see which ones make that 5-year cut. Okay? We've got 10 minutes before 10, so let's move down to the next one, okay? Municipal
Mr.
service
Chair, could I
grants.
ask,
Go ahead.
Could I make a motion before we move on, just to do with the $319,043 that we recommend the council that be put on the internet debt, so it's done right away and we can take advantage of that, saving money quickly?
It's
So I
been
move
moved.
that. It's appropriate.
Okay, I guess is there any comments on this? What impact does that have on our indicators with the municipal affairs?
It's not gonna change your indicators by anything, you're still gonna have a deficit.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on that? All those in favor? Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Okay. All right. I'll read through these real quickly, or if you want me to just say that I'm looking for a mover to for my District 11 municipal service grants.
I'll second it.
And you see them as presented. There's 18 of them on this document right now, so.
$24,250.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. District 12,
I'll move it for $25,750. I need a seconder. I'll second it.
it's moved and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary-minded? Motion carried. So recreation grants, operating assistance. UC Friends, Thorburn Youth Group is asking for $1,500, and it's the same amount that was granted last year. Do we do these separately? Is that the way you do these, or do you do them in the?
I guess my only comment is, we didn't budget to cover all of these in the budget. We only budgeted 7 or 8,000, wasn't it, in that? Like, there were grants approved last year that there actually was no budget for.
Okay, so they've already been approved for us?
Not these ones, no. But we only budgeted, there's only,
There's 4.3 recreation grant.
Yeah.
recreation community program, and we only budgeted 7,000.
7,000 is all budget and community programming.
5,000. So what's your wishes, council? Go ahead, Councillor Palmer.
I'll make a motion for the $2,800 for the Thorburn Youth Group. And I'll make a motion of $2,500 for the Lismore District, same as last year. And $2,900 for the Little Harbor one.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments? Council-
give us for a total?
You'd still be over budget because your $750 summer program grants comes out of that. Like last year, when the amounts went forward, and I'm not sure which order they went in, there wouldn't have actually been budget to approve them. So we'll be over budget before we even start.
Councillor Bailey.
So, I guess my question is, so when it says last year's grant was 2,500 for the Lismore District Recreation or the Friends of Thorburn Group, well, they're asking 15, that's new. But, so when they said that they got a grant last year, were they part of the, they weren't part of the municipal?
No, they came in after the
grant?
fact.
They all came after the
Yeah.
fact.
So last year we spent 9,800
9850,
and we had a budget of 6,000.
yeah, so,
3,000 last year.
yeah.
Warden Parker.
So, we can either go over budget, which just seems to be, what we did last year, but we're very early in the year, aren't we, to go over budget, but should some, or could some of these come out of municipal service grants? You know, are they
Yep.
something that could be funded? I know in ours, we funded $5,000 for that greenhouse at the school because it was needed to get the other levels of government moving. Should some of those come out of municipal service grants? I guess is that, I'm looking for other possible funding for these rather than out of this budget if it's full.
So how did these end up on our agenda tonight? I guess is my biggest question.
They go to our recreation department, and then they bring them forward to, as a request. And I know a few of them have been there for a little while, waiting on the budget to be approved.
I'll make a
Councillor
motion
Palmer.
that we table it, send it back to Recreation for them to send it back to council,
Okay.
because it's not within budget.
So there was already a motion on the floor, right? You're moving to table it, so there's no debate on this, okay? Defer. Okay,
Can I, am I allowed to speak on that? It's just council, like, council needs to make the decision, right?
yeah.
Recreation won't be making the decision. Because they're asking council.
Okay.
Council's asking Recreation to look at her budget and come back with a recommendation.
Well,
Okay,
Still going over budget, so we're asking her to look at the budget and make a recommendation.
so we're in the last minute of play in the third period, and I need a motion right now to extend it by 15 minutes, I think is all we need. I guess we have a motion on the floor. Let's get it in. You got 45 seconds. Just a second. So the motion, table the motion. Let's table the motion first. Yeah. Okay? All those in favor? Aye. Contraminded? One nay,